Welcome to my weekly Self-Important The Magic the Gathering show. This is the first week in a long time that I didn't have a clear idea ahead of time. I feel like I'm done with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I'm surprised I didn't give them their own folder. So you in the guilds. Well, I guess it's because they never had their own folder. So we're going to go here. So I can either do... It started on these background decks. Oh wow, all of these are private except for one. Let's do this. Do this. Make them all unlisted instead. This overwrites them so I don't have to worry about unchecking them. There we go. That's awesome. I was thinking about starting on the Doctor Who ones, but I think I will do these first, and then we'll see together how I did these decks. Like, did I only use Dungeons and Dragons cards? So we'll start with Imoen, the Dungeon Trickster, who, as you might guess, oh no, I did not stick to Dungeon and Dragons only cards. Well, that's good. I also built this, or at least updated it fairly recently, since this is a Final Fantasy Commander card. So let's go over Commander first. The background is Dungeon Delver. Commander creatures you own, I like how it says own, have room abilities of dungeons you own trigger additional time. So this is mono blue dungeons. This is probably not a good deck, let's be honest. And then Imoen, Mystic Trickster. That's why I called it Dungeon Trickster, because it's Dungeon and Trickster. At the beginning of your end step, if you have the initiative, draw a card. Draw another card if you've completed a dungeon, and then of course choose a background, which is what the other card does. So let's just stay in this. Do I need to? Well, I need to wash my glasses. Here we go. So, Ishtola rule, this 6-mana 3/5 in mono blue. At the beginning of your end step, exile target creature you control, then return it to the battlefield under its owner's control. Then, if it's the first end step of the turn, there's an additional end step after this step. That second part is more important than the first part. In fact, I wish she cost less and didn't do the first part. But they probably didn't want that additional end step effect coming out early, so they stapled Blink onto her to justify this 6-mana cost. Spark Double to double, I guess, our commander. To draw more cards, basically. Endless Atlas, because we're in mono blue. That's the one where it's a reusable clue as long as we have 3 or more lands with the same name, and we're in monocolor. So, Reality Chip to either be able to just look at the top card of our deck, or if we equip it to another creature, we can play lands and cast spells from the top of our deck. Defiler of Dreams, part of a cycle. And the blue one is generally not as popular because blue is more associated with not permanence. So this is a 5-mana 4/3 with flying. As an additional cost to cast blue permanent spells, you may pay 2 life. Those spells cost a blue pip less if you paid the life. It only affects blue mana. When you cast a blue permanent spell, draw a card. See, and that's why I like it, because this isn't a Spellslinger deck. We're casting permanents. Dungeon Descent is a land that allows us to pay 5 total, since this is a land itself, to tap an untapped legendary creature we control to venture into the dungeon. I don't think I've ever... Let's see. Down here, it should probably tell us... Here's all of our tokens. So, when you venture into the dungeon, if you didn't know already, you basically move into the top room on one of these dungeon cards. There's these 4 that you can go into normally, but if you have the initiative, you also have the Undercity as an option. I don't think you can choose this without the initiative. And each of those rooms has an effect. And this is activated as a sorcery. 50 feet of rope, we can pay 4 and venture into the dungeon as a sorcery. It's a 1-mana artifact. It can also make walls unable to block, or you can keep a creature from untapping. Fly. I was thinking of something, but there's a spell called Jump that gives you flight until end of turn. But Fly, enchant creature. Enchanted creature has flying, and whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, venture into the dungeon. Secret Door, pay 5, venture into the dungeon as a sorcery. It's a 1-mana 0/4 with Defender. Can't be blocked as long as it's attacking alone, and if it deals combat damage to a player, venture into the dungeon. It's a 2-mana 2/1. Displacer Beast. When Displacer Beast enters the battlefield, you venture into the dungeon. And you can also pay 4 to return it to your hand. Dungeon Map. Venture into the dungeon again, but it's also a 3-mana mana rock that doesn't even tap for colored mana. Dungeoneer's Pack. You can sacrifice it, and one of the many things that it does is venture into the dungeon. No, you take the initiative. There you go. So that's like venturing into the dungeon, but slower. Venture into the dungeon when this enters play. And at the beginning of combat on your turn, if you've completed a dungeon... and then if you've completed a dungeon, at the beginning of combat on your turn, you can turn something into a bird until end of turn. It doesn't remove their abilities. It just makes them a 1/1 flyer. That is a bird. Unless it does. It loses all other creature types, but does not lose its abilities. Take the initiative. Venture into the dungeon on combat damage. Take the initiative. And whenever equipped creature becomes blocked, it deals 2 damage to each creature blocking it, so that's pretty cool. Take the initiative. And then at the beginning of your end step, if you have the initiative, you get a bird. No, fairy dragon. Take the initiative, and then you copy your second spell each turn. But if you completed a dungeon, you copy that spell twice. And copies of permanent spells become tokens. That's something that I just remember. And then I'm just... and then we still have 37 lands because I do not count Dungeon Descent as one of my lands. I'm not going to read all the flavor text on all the D&D lands, but we have three of each, and then on top of that we have 6 of this one from Duskmourn, just because I think it's neat. And then we also have Lotus Field, because it's sort of technically ramp. It taps for 3, but it enters the play tapped, but you have to sacrifice 2 other lands. What is this one? Untap target legendary permanent. Myriad Landscape to pay 3 mana to pull 2 islands out of your deck. Mystic Sanctuary. Comes into play tapped unless you control 3 or more islands. And then when it comes into play, you may put target instant or sorcery. If it comes into play untapped, you can get an instant or sorcery from your graveyard on top of your deck. Nykthos to get blue mana off of Devotion. Reliquary Tower to have no maximum hand size. Terrain Generator, haven't seen that in a deck in a while. That's just to pay 3 mana because itself is a land. To put a basic land from your hand into play. It's inefficient ramp, but when you're not green, you know. Only 3 pieces of mass disruption in this deck. We have Curse of the Swine, which turns exiles creatures and turns them into 2/2 green boars. Aetherize, which puts attacking creatures into their owner's hand. Aether Spouts, which puts attacking creatures on top or bottom of their owner's library. Then our protection pieces, which looks like I have 9 because I want to protect the heck out of my commander, I guess. Not that we have like any real win conditions that I've seen. So we got Brotherhood Regalia, which is Ward 2 and unblockable. And equips Legendary Creature 1. Lightning Greaves, Prowler's Helm, which is can't be blocked except by walls. Most people don't play walls. Psychic Paper, Ward 1, can't be blocked. And then its name and creature type are the last chosen name. Choose a creature card name and creature type, yeah. That part is dumb, but you do kind of have to say something. What's funny is that you can say Solemn Simulacrum if it's... I think this is how it would work. If this is... oh no, that one's still non-legendary. I was thinking that if you had 2 legendary creatures with different names, you could use Psychic Paper to change the name of one of them to the name of the other, and then you'd have to sacrifice one of them to the legend rule. I don't know why you would do that, but that is a thing that you can do. Silver Shroud Costume. Shroud and Talent of Turn, but can't be blocked. Apparently, when I built this deck, having my commander unblockable was very important. Swiftfoot Boots, Lightning Greaves, those are different flavors of please don't target my commander. Quill Creature is indestructible. Propaganda, you know, please don't attack me. Whisper Silk Cloak, Shroud and unblockable. Only 8 pieces of ramp. That's awful. But we have Solemn Simulacrum, Ow. Oh, sorry. Phlegmy throat, and then my sides decided to hurt from that. Ow. Ow, ow, ow. Solemn Simulacrum. When it enters, you get a land from your library into play tapped, and then when it dies, you draw a card. Thought Vessel adds colorless, no maximum hand size. Iron Crag and can turn into a piece of equipment. I don't do that very often. 2 mana rock, taps for colorless. Sky Diamond enters play taps, but taps for blue. Sapphire Medallion makes all of our blue spells cost 1 less. Mind Stone, Arc Sig, and Soul Ring. Interesting selection of prints I decided to use for this deck, in my opinion. Let's go to removal, which I have 12. Imprison on the Moon, which is just a mean card. Enchant creature, land, or planeswalker. It becomes a colorless land with tap to add colorless and loses all other card types and abilities. That's just like the really mean Commander Go Away Forever card. Reality Shift. Exile target creature, its controller manifests the top card of the library. Vapor Snag. Return target creature to its owner's hand, its controller loses 1 life. So this is part of my thing of, I don't think blue needs counter spells. Let's try bouncing stuff to put off the problem until later. But like, there's a lot of them. But we have Reality Shift and Imprison on the Moon to like really throw something away. Classic Unsummon, which is creature to owner's hand. And stuff like that, where it just says target creature and it doesn't say opponent controls, that these can also be used to save our own stuff in a pinch. Return target creature to its owner's hand. That creature's controller may pay double blue. If that player does, they may copy the spell and choose new targets. Stern Dismissal, creature or enchantment. It looks like I very specifically picked the ones where I can still target my own stuff if I need to. Yeah. Rapid Hybridization, destroy a creature, they get a 3/3 frog. Pongfi is the same thing, except for it's a 3/3 ape. Into the Flood Maw, you can return a creature to the owner's hand, and it does say opponent's control. But if you give them a fish, it's any non-land permanent. I think that's why that made it in. Target creature to its owner's hand. If its mana value is 3 or less, you get to scry. Chain of Vapor. Return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. Then that permanent's controller may sacrifice a land. If they do, they copy the spell. New targets for the copy. Bounce off. Creature or vehicle to owner's hand. Most of this is more annoying than like super good, but that's just the way I choose to play blue. And then things that make tokens, I guess. And this will be a section that I'm going to have to click on to read, so we're going to start here. I'm going to pull this down manually. There we go. Homunculus Horde. Whenever you cast your second spell each turn, create a token that's a copy of this creature. More fair than Scoot Swarm, because you can't cheat second spell each turn. That's fixed. Like, you can get 1,000,000 land into play in one turn, but you can't get 1,000,000 second spell each turn. Enters, you investigate X times, where X is the number of opponents you have, so 3 at most. But whenever you draw your second card each turn, which is another thing that you can't cheat, you only get 1 second card each turn, But our commander's thing is kind of to draw cards and to keep initiative, which is probably why it's also important that we have unblockable creatures so we can keep taking the initiative back. But yeah, we get a 1/1 creature token with flying. I think our game plan is like this is definitely probably more for 1v1 than it is for all 4 players, even though we have this in here. Though the second part is more important than the first part. Just because it seems like we could probably get rid of like one opponent, but I guess it also depends on what kind of value we get out of all of the dungeons we go to. Which I suppose we should look to see what the different rooms are, but man, that is a lot of work. A lot of it is like, scry 1, gain a life, someone loses a life. You know, and then like the some of the payoffs are cast a spell for free, draw some extra cards, get a huge demon. Okay. Alandra, Sky Dreamer. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, you get a Drake. Okay. Whenever you draw your 5th card each turn, which is a heavy ask, her and all Drakes you control get +X until end of turn, where the X is the number of cards in your hand. That's probably not going to happen a whole lot, but that is certainly the dream. That's why she's a dreamer. Thopter Fabricator. Draw your second card. We get a Thopter. Not an Ornithopter, because this thing actually has power. It's a 1/1. Whenever you draw a card, period, you may pay 1. If you do, this thing gets a +1/+1 counter, and you get a Tentacle, a 1/1. Min, Wily Illusionist. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, create a 1/1 blue illusion creature token, which, with this creature, gets +1/+0 for each other illusion you control. Whenever an illusion you control dies, you may put a permanent card with mana value less than or equal to that creature's power from your hand onto the battlefield. That's pretty neat. Detective of the Month. I'm with everyone else that, or at least the group of people I'm about to mention. Murders of Karlov Manor would have been better if it was murders on any plane other than Ravnica. Why is everyone suddenly a detective? Someone mentioned a better plane than Ravnica for the set, but I don't remember what it was. I mean, technically, Innistrad could have worked a detective story, but like they were better off going to just any other plane. Like Streets of New Capenna would have been better for a noir setting. Anyway, as long as you have the city's blessing, detectives you control can't be blocked. Oh, and it has Ascend, which means you get the city's blessing the second you control 10 permanents. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, you get a 2/2 white and blue detective. Whenever you draw a card, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. When this creature dies, you get X 1/1 blue squid creature tokens with Island Walk, where X is the number of +1/+1 counters on this creature. Oh, and whatever this thing is from Final Fantasy. Omnises, whenever you draw a card, this thing gets a foreshadow counter, and then you can remove 8 of those counters to get an 8/8 blue Kraken. Whenever you draw your second card, you get a 1/1 blue fairy with flying, and then Imprison on the Moon. Okay. I can't think of anything I'd rather have in this deck than what's already in here. This is a very straightforward. Oh man, I said it was a lot of work, but let's actually look to see what the different dungeons do. So, Dungeon of the Mad Mage. The first room you gain a life. The second room you scry 2, and then you can either get a treasure token, or target creature can't attack until your next turn. And then On the ones that happen twice, you pick a new target each time. Scry 2, it looks like that says. I know there's a thing over here, but I'm trying to read it off the card. And then you can either exile the top 2 cards of your library to play them this turn, I assume. Create 2 1/1 skeletons, scry 3, and then finally, if you get to the end, draw 3 cards and reveal them. You may cast one of them without paying its mana cost, and then the other 2 just stay in your hand. So that's the payoff for going through all of that. Lost Mind of Phandelver. This is a popular one, if I recall correctly, just because it's quick to get through, even though the ending is not great. Scry 1, or get a 1/1 goblin or a treasure, and then if you went to the goblin lair, which to get the goblin, you can put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. That's the only time you can do that. And then if Mind Tunnels, you can only go over to the Fungi Cavern. Target creature gets -4/-0 until end of turn. Is that what that says? Yep. Oh, until our next turn. And then regardless if you took the treasure or the goblin, you can opt to each opponent loses a life and you gain a life. And then the payoff is drawing a card. Not amazing, super awesome. Then we have the Tomb of Annihilation. Each player loses a life. And then you can either go to Veils of Fear. Each player loses 2 life unless they discard a card, and then each player loses 2 life unless they sacrifice on an artifact, creature, or land. Or, if you don't want that, you can take the shortcut through the oubliette to discard a card and sacrifice an artifact, creature, and land. So, yeah. You have to do all of the things over here. But it's the shortcut. You definitely don't want to have your Dungeon Delver out if you're going through the Tomb of Annihilation. Especially since Cradle the Death card is that you create the... What does that say? The Atropol? A legendary 4/4 Black God horror creature token with Death Touch. Yeah, you don't... Because since it's legendary, you don't... This is the one you go through if you don't plan on doubling your triggers. And then finally, the one for the initiative. Secret Entrance. Search your library for a basic land, reveal it, put in your hand, shuffle. That's already the best first room, in my opinion. And then you can either put 2 1/1 counters on target creature or scry 2. And then if you did +1/+1 counters, you can make target player lose 3 life. And then if you did scry 2, you can create a treasure token. And then either the scry 2 or the +1/+1 counters, you can do goad target creature. And then off of target player loses 3 life or goad, you get draw a card. That's a whole other one's final payoff. And then go target creature and create a treasure token leads to create a 4/1. Is that a 4/1? 4/1 black skeleton creature token with menace, which means you need to block it with at least 2 things if you want to block it at all. Oh, and when you take the initiative and the beginning of your upkeep, that's when you venture into the Undercity. You can take the initiative even if you already have it. And then, so Throne of the Dead 3. That's the fun one. I'm just going to go down here. Reveal the top 10 cards of your library. Put a creature card from among them onto the battlefield with 3 +1/+1 counters on it. It gains hexproof until your next turn, and then you shuffle your library. You shuffle those cards back into your library. So, yeah. The initiative is the best dungeon. And that's why you want it. And I don't think you can go into the Undercity without the initiative. You can't enter this dungeon unless you venture into the Undercity, which you can only do if you're not already in a dungeon. And that only triggers off the initiative. Okay. Well, that was good. I like this deck for, what it's worth. Let's hit whoops. Let's hit type really quick. 21 creatures, not the worst. You could probably take out something like Propaganda if you think you'd rather have literally anything else. There's probably other lands you would rather put in. But for what I wanted to accomplish, I think I did well here. So that was that one. Burakos, Haunted One. Oh! I actually am mildly proud of this one. So let's start with the background. Haunted One. Commander creatures you own have, when this creature becomes tapped, it and other creatures you control that share a creature type with it gain +2/+0 and gain Undying until end of turn. Undying is the one where I think it comes back from being killed once. Well, from being killed with a -1/-1 counter. Nope, Undying is the +1/+1 counter. Persist is the -1/-1 counter. Okay. But it can only undie if it doesn't already have a +1/+1 counter on it. I don't think I have any ways to remove counters in this deck, because that's kind of a blue effect. And I think I've seen it in white. But anyway, Burakos, party leader. He counts as a cleric, rogue, warrior, and wizard. So this is mono black party, and I'm surprised I was able to put this deck together. Now, I'll read the next part first before the thing I was about to say. Whenever Burakos attacks, defending player loses X life, and you create X treasure tokens, where X is the number of creatures in your party. So a party is having a cleric, rogue, warrior, and wizard, and a creature can only count as one of those things. So Burakos, the party leader, while he is a cleric, rogue, warrior, and wizard for the purposes of Haunted One, for the purposes of our party, he's only one of those, and it's whichever one you need at the time. Excuse me. And did I do this? Yes, okay. So the next section, because the sections are in alphabetical order, are our clerics. Actually, no, even though I just did that, we have 7 clerics. You know what? I'm gonna make it to where these are all in the same spot. Class cleric. Class warrior. Class rogue. class wizard. So we have 7 clerics, 7 rogues, 7 warriors, but only 6 wizards. Technically, so statistically speaking, Burakos will count as a wizard. Do we have other creatures in this deck that are non-classed? Oh, that's interesting. We don't have the water crystal in that mono blue deck because it says mill on it, and I don't want people to get worried. So, oh, we also have that. Okay. So now we can go over everything because we're going to go through the classes. So Dream Devourer, this lets us foretell cards that don't normally have foretell. Foretell means you exile them face down by paying 2 colorless. Well, not 2 colorless, 2 generic. And then you can cast them on a future turn, obeying timing rules, I'm fairly certain, by paying their mana cost minus 2 generic. But then whenever we foretell a card, this becomes this gets +2/+0 until end of turn. Priest of Forgotten Gods. We can sacrifice 2 other creatures. Any number of target players each lose 2 life. And sacrifice a creature of their choice. We add double black and draw a card. Honestly, the drawing a card is the most important part. Elegy Acolyte has lifelink. Whenever one or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, you draw a card and lose a life. Okay. At the beginning of your end step, if a non-land permanent left the battlefield this turn, or a spell was warped this turn, warped is not important in this deck because I don't think I have anything in this deck that does it. But warp is a thing where you can cast it for its warp cost. It comes into play, and then the warp cost is less than its normal mana cost. So it stays in play for that turn, then is exiled, and then you can cast it again for its full mana cost, full normal mana cost at a later time. But anyway, we get a 2/2 colorless robot artifact creature token, which that's the important part. And don't forget, tokens are permanents. They're just not cards. So once we get this robot once by something else dying, the robot will always replace itself as long as it died on our turn. Or is exiled because it says left. Shadowheart, Dark Justicar. She has her own deck later. But for now, we can pay 1 in a black, tap her, sacrifice another creature, draw X cards, or X is that creature's power. Choose background, don't matter. Twilight Prophet. This is a great card. It has Ascend, so 10 permanents, City's Blessing. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you have the City's Blessing, reveal the top card of your library and put it into your hand. Each opponent loses X life and you gain X life, where X is the card's mana value. As long as it ain't a land, you're doing something. Like 1 to every 1 and gaining 1 still is something. And it's an extra card. You're trading surprise for damage and a little bit of life gain. Alpha Rail, Stone Chosen. It has ward, discard a card at random, which means if you target with something that's with a spell. Is it spell or ability? Monkey heck. Dang it. I don't know if it's spell or ability off the top of my head, but that's that it's countered unless they discard a card at random. Whenever Alpha Rael attacks, if a non-land permanent left the battlefield this turn or a spell was warped this turn, defending players loses half their life rounded up. This really is the what do I think are the best 7 clerics in mono black, or at least the ones that I wanted to use. I guess these don't have to be the best. The best 7 clerics that you're not just cleric tribaling too, because like otherwise Tabarak's the guy that draws you cards when clerics die. Although I think it draws cards no matter what, but then you get like a bonus if clerics die. I'd have to look him up. Whenever drawn, the last Blood Chief attacks, defending player chooses a non-legendary creature card in your graveyard. You return that card to the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter. It is now a vampire. We do have a bunch of legendaries that this doesn't hit on, but it's still a fine 4/4 that can return some other stuff. Bitter Blossom is in the head of the rogues. It's not a creature itself, but it makes fairy rogues. Oh, I wonder if we want to put in Bitter Bear. Maybe not instead, but in addition. Treasure Dredger, 1 generic, tap, pay a life, create a treasure token. Good way of banking mana for future turns. Audacious Thief, whenever it attacks, you draw a card and lose a life, that's fine. Morbid Opportunist, whenever one or more other creatures die, draw a card once a turn. Safana, Kalimport Cutthroat. At the beginning of your upstep, if you have the initiative, create a treasure token. Create 3 of those if you've completed a dungeon. Okay, we are going to get rid of her and put in the Bitter Bearer. Evan, Waterdeep Opportunist. Menace has to be blocked by at least 2 creatures if you block it. Ward, sacrifice a creature. Evan gets +2/+0 for each treasure you control. Well, we are making treasures with our commander and some other cards. Whenever one or more players sacrifice 1 or more creatures, you create a treasure token once a turn. Grim Hireling. Whenever 1 or more creatures you control do combat damage to a player, create 2 treasure tokens. Then you can pay black, sacrifice X treasures. Target creature gets -X/-X until end of turn. Activate only as a sorcery. Pretty sweet. Blood-Soaked Champion. We're now into our warriors. Can't block, but it is a Savannah Lion. It is a 2/1 for 1. And then if you've attacked with a creature this turn, you can pay 1 and a black to return this from the graveyard to the battlefield. And then we have another Savannah Lion in Warriors. It enters the battlefield tapped, but also you can pay 1 and a black to return it from your graveyard to the battlefield only if a non-skeleton creature died under your control this turn. Our warrior section is honestly kind of messed up. So this is a 1/1 for 2, but I do really dig this art. Pay 1 and a black, return it from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. So you technically are casting it from the graveyard, sort of. Avenger of the Fallen. Mobilize X, where the X is the number of creature cards in your graveyard. Kind of a non-bow with the stuff that can, with Drana and other stuff that brings it back. But, meh. Shakedown Heavy is just funny. It's 3 mana for a 6/4 with Menace, so you gotta block it with 2 things. But whenever Shakedown Heavy attacks, defending player may have you draw a card. If they do, untap Shakedown Heavy and remove it from combat. It's just hilarious. Kalitas, Trader of Get. It has lifelink, so anytime it deals damage, you gain that much life. If a non-token creature an opponent controlled would die, instead exile that card and you get a zombie, a 2/2 zombie. A little bit of extra removal on top of your removal. And then you can pay 2 and a black, sacrifice another vampire or zombie. Which We do have ways of making vampires and zombies. Put 2+1/+1 counters on Galatas Trader of Get. Swarm Color. When this creature becomes tapped, you may sacrifice another creature or artifact if you do draw a card. Nice. Dark Confidant. Is this Bob? Or is that specifically the spell? No, this is Bob, right? At the beginning of your upkeep, reveal the top card of your library and put that card in your hand. You lose life equal to its converted mana cost. Also, we're in Wizards now. Jadar Gukolor of Nephilia. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you control no creatures with Decayed, you get a 2/2 black zombie creature with Decayed. Oh, hey, look, you can sacrifice those to Kalatas. Grim Haruspex. You can cast it face down and then turn for 3. There's no point in doing that because it's a 2/2. But then you can pay black to turn it face up. That's absolutely pointless unless you're playing a morph deck and you want this to be like, oh ho ho, what is it? Is it this or something that's more important to have face down? Whenever a non-token creature you control dies, draw a card. Like, that's obviously a non-boat with all the tokens that we want to make, but it works with all of our other creatures that you know that are going to die at some point. Mastermind Plum. Whenever Mastermind Plum attacks, exile up to 1 target card from a graveyard. If an artifact card was exiled this way, you create a treasure token. Whenever you cast a spell, if mana from a treasure token was spent to cast it, you draw a card and lose a life. Sweet. Warren Soul Trader. Pay 1 life, sacrifice another creature, create a treasure token. Nice. Pay a black, sacrifice another creature, create X 2/2 black zombie creature tokens, where X is the sacrificed creature's power. And then next is not a creature. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I have 0 sacrifice payoffs. Like no blood artists. I'm checking the clerics because that's the way they were most likely to be. But we're going to get rid of this. Bitterbloom Bearer. Bitter Blossom on a creature. It has flash, so you can cast it at instant speed. Costs double black. It's a 1/1. Has flying. At the beginning of your upkeep, you lose a life and create a rogue. Oh no, he doesn't create rogues. But he himself is a rogue. So that is very interesting. He himself is at least a rogue. He doesn't make more rogues. But that's fine. Because this one creates rogues. Okay. But you yourself are a rogue, so you can count for rogues. And you know what it was? There just wasn't another wizard I wanted to put into this deck. But several sets came out since then. So let's go type wizard set. Is it ECL? ELC. Okay, it is ECL. Are there no wizards? There are no wizards because they're all warlocks. Or if there are wizards, they're not in black. And we're not doing shapeshifters, except for with a card that I haven't talked about yet. Well, that's mildly interesting. Is it TKD for... no. TDS? I don't, TDM. Of course, mobilize. I should have remembered that. Nope, no black mana wizards in that set. That was silly of me. The Last Airbender. Nope. There is one wizard, one mono black wizard in Turtles. At the beginning of combat on your turn, put a +1/+1 counter on Savanti Romero times Exile. Then draw cards and lose X life, where X is the number of counters on him. I'm going to leave that there because we'd still have to take out... My card is down... My deck is down a card. That is the thing that happens sometimes, is that cards fall out of the deck. So let's go here. Added remove cards. Endless Atlas removed itself. Oh, right. Can, yeah, return to make it into a skeleton. Oh, but I wanted to remove this, the Phyrexian Arena. But we are putting the Endless Atlas back in. Because I'd rather pay 2 mana than 1 life. And then we're still at 99. That's because... if we're paying life, we're going to draw more than 1 card. And also, it's kind of removal bait, because I imagine people will want to get rid of it. And that way, in the deck, we have 21 creatures right here. Well, no, this is still 20, because one of these is an enchantment. But yeah, but now we have 7, 7, 7, and 7, and that makes me feel better. So Black Market Connections. At the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, choose 1 or more. You can pay 1 life for a treasure token, 2 life to draw a card, or 3 life for a 3/2 shapeshifter with Changeling, which means it's all creature types. And then our land is an unsurprising set. In fact, it's basically the same thing. No, there are some differences. We have Path of Ancestry, so we can scry every time we play a creature, because they're all going to share a, or whenever we cast a creature with the mana spent from this land, we can scry one. because they all share a creature type with our commander. Then Phyrexian Tower, we can sacrifice sacrifice a creature. Oh no, okay, I see what it is. This card and the other card we're getting. This is the planet. It enters taps for black. It has station, so you can tap creatures on your turn to put counters on this thing equal to their power. And once it has 12 or more counters on it, you can pay 1 in a black, tap, pay 2 life, sacrifice a creature, draw cards equal to the sacrifice this creature's power, only on your turn. And then Phyrexian Tower is we can sacrifice a creature to add double black. Otherwise, it only taps for colorless. And then these are the D&D lands. And then Dustmorn again, because I do like those lands. And then we have the black, and it comes into play tapped unless you control 3 or more other swamps. But when it enters untapped, you may put a creature from your graveyard on top of your library. So the blue and black one are very, very similar. In fact, I think they're the only two that are similar. Because white puts a +1/+1 counter on something. Red gives you a 1/1 creature. And green makes a food token. Then we have the exact same protection pieces to make a creature unblockable or untargetable or indestructible. The ramp is slightly different. We don't have Solemn Simulacrum for one. So we have Soul Ring, Arcane Signet, Charcoal Diamond, that's the end to play taps for the color. Jet Medallion, don't look at that one too much. Black spells cost 1 generic less. Soul Stone from the Marvel ones. It is an indestructible mana rock, and that by itself is neat. But you can pay a total of 8 because this itself produces mana, so always count that in the cost. To exile a creature you control, which can be a token. And then we harness the Soul Stone. It gets its infinity ability. At the beginning of your upkeep, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Neato Skeeto. Thought Vessel again. Oh, I see, because a lot of the generic mana ones we did not put into this deck. The Thought Vessel for no maximum hand size. We didn't do the no maximum hand size land. We still have Terrain Generator, though. That's always funny. Bontu's Monument. Black creature spells cost 1 less. Whenever you cast a creature spell, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain a life. The funny thing is that we don't have that many. But still. This one is black spells cost 1 less. If a non-token creature an opponent controlled would die, exile its stuff instead and you gain 2 life. Then you can pay, what is that, 6? And tap, put target creature card exiled with the Darkness Crystal onto the battlefield under control with 2 additional +1/+1 counters on it. And as I always say, grave robbing is perfectly acceptable. Oh, Palace Siege. I haven't seen me putting that in a deck in a while. This does return it to our hand instead of into play. As Palace Siege enters the battlefield, choose Cons or Dragons. If you have Cons, at the beginning of your upkeep, return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. So that's a good way of recasting them at least. Or you can choose Dragons, and at the beginning of your upkeep, each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. So, whichever one you need. Virtue of Persistence. It has a kind of not great removal spell. 1 in a black, sorcery speed, target creature gets -3/-3 until the turn, you gain 2 life. It's not the worst, but sorcery speed removal isn't the best. And then for 7, at the beginning of your upkeep, put target creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. Oh, and that's else. Oh no, we got our removal, which I don't have mass disruption at as its own separate thing, so we'll see how this goes. Deadly Alliance, it costs 1 less for each creature in your party. So this can be as little as a single black. Oh, and this actually explains that a party is up to 1 each of Cleric, Rogue, Warrior, and Wizard. Drag to the Underworld, it costs 4 normally, but the generic is reduced by the amount of your devotion to black. That's black pips among permanents you control. So it's normally just going to cost 2 black to destroy a creature. Deadly Rollick is free if you have your commander, exile target creature. Whoops. And once again, I do like the arts that I pick out. Sometimes I make decisions just for how good it'll look on the recording. And also in an ideal world when you have infinite money and you want these in paper. Baleful Mastery, it's 1 in a black to exile target creature or planeswalker. One of your opponents draws a card. Overkill, 3 mana to give something -9999 until end of turn. Because sometimes you just need to be sure. Arch Enemy's Charm, you can either exile a creature or planeswalker, or return 1 or 2 target creature cards and or planeswalker cards from your graveyard to your hand, or put 2+1/+1 counters on target creature you control against lifelink until end of turn. It's in the removal section because that's the one that gets chosen the most often. Destroy creature, you lose 2 life. Destroy creature with no counters on it, or remove 3 counters from a creature. Okay. Grasp of Darkness. This is why I don't like. This is why I said the spell half of virtue of whatever isn't as good, because this is an instant and it's -4/-4 for same mana value. Just both pips are black. Go for the Throat. Destroy non-artifact creature. Destroy target non-legendary creature. I play this card in Arena, and then a lot of the times I'm like, oh man, because like you run into like a Joda deck and all they have are legends, and you're like, well, this is dead. This is a dead card that don't matter. -1/-1 for each swamp you control. Heck yeah. Oh, and I noticed I didn't do Cabal Coffers or anything. Mildly interesting thing to note that I did or did not do. So that's this deck. This one, like I said at the beginning, I am very happy that that this deck was able to exist, because it's like, oh, mono black party. That's cool. It's just, and it's seven of each. So 28 total, because I can do math eventually, but it's 27 creatures, I think. Yeah, 28 including our commander. And then I was even able to add something from the newest set because it's a wizard, who, while I'm not a big fan of potentially drawing that many cards and losing that much life, you just kind of know that since it's a flying 4/4 with trample that could get bigger, people are just going to remove it, so you might not draw that many cards from it anyway. We're going to move Scryfall over there, because I should probably just keep it open. Then I guess... Oh, we have one more mono black deck. Sivriss, Criminal Nightmare, huh? That's what I decided. Because he's a Nightmare Speaker and he has a criminal past. Yeah, I really wasn't afraid of going outside of D&D if there's a Transformer in here. So, Criminal Past. Commander creatures you own have Menace, and this creature gets +1/+0, where X is the number of creature cards in your graveyard. Okay. Sivriss, Nightmare Speaker. Sacrifice another creature or an artifact. For each opponent, you mill a card. Then return that card from your graveyard to your hand unless that player pays 3 life. Okay. So I've made a deck, not by choice, but because it was on this mission of using every single creature that can have a background with every single background. Not like that, but like until everything's been paired up at least once. I really wish there were, like, I think it was 2 more backgrounds. Because the colorless one is just draft contingency. So it doesn't count because it doesn't actually do anything. Which is sad. No, I was thinking about the Doctor Who one, but the Doctor Who one at least did something else. But it's sad for this, and it was sad for another one. Oh, it was Commander... was it Commander Legends? Yeah, that had that Prismatic Piper. It's like, yeah, this is just to make sure you're not messed up in draft. Anyway, so I don't like milling, but let's see what we do. If an opponent would lose life during your turn, they lose twice that much life. So that's to incentivize them letting me have the card. At the beginning of your end step, target opponent loses life equal to life that the player lost this turn. If no life was lost this way, we flip them over. Pardon. Living Metal, which means it's a creature on your turn. At the beginning of combat on your turn, you either get flying or indestructible at random. Blitzwing gets that. And then if it deals combat damage to a player, we can turn it back over. Then Gary, the Gray Merchant, wasn't in the other deck because he doesn't have a class. I know there's some people who think this card is weak sauce, but sometimes you just want to throw, like, I would say gaining 9 life while doing 3 damage to each of your opponents isn't the worst thing in the world for 5 mana, and you still get a 2/4 out of it. And I say 3 mana because that's assuming you only had 1 other black pip on the field when you played this. Its fail case is you gain 9 life and deal 3 damage to each opponent. I don't think that's terrible. Then we have the Atlas. Ayara, First of Lochthwain. Whenever her or another black creature enters the battlefield under your control, each opponent loses life and you gain a life, and then you can sacrifice another black creature to draw a card. Morbid Opportunity. Ooh, wow, I really like this one. What is this from? Special Guests. So it's special guests from one set or another. Whenever one or more creatures die, draw a card once a turn. Myriad Landscape, Nykthos, Ancestry. Huh. Because we were expecting to have a bunch of Snake Cleric Warlocks. I might have copied this wholesale from the other one and just did not change that because it didn't matter. Because I see the planet. Whoops, no, not you. Let's take out the Path of Ancestry. And for lack of anything else, we're putting in the Reliquary Tower. And then, because we are who we are going to change printing. Dang, look at that $100 one right here. Well, that one's only $8 compared to everything else. Anyway, all of our swamps, yep. So we're going to go here. So, okay, all of this... Oh, wait, no, Mirror Shield might be new. If it's blocked by... Blocks or is blocked by a creature with Death Touch, that creature is just destroyed. Oh, Champion's Helm, that's new. There are more pieces of protection in here. It's all the same kind of stuff because it either gives Hexproof or Shroud or Indestructible. Oh, Hammer of Nizan gives Indestructible, but we also get free equips on when we play other equipment. And this equipment. So that's cool. I see 19 pieces of ramp, but that's because several of them cost more than 3. Virtual Persistence is here again. Oh, we'll get to that section. Yeah, I see that I did a lot of copy pasting. Cold Steel Heart enters play tapped, and you choose the color that it adds. Felwar Stone. It taps for a color that a land an opponent controls can produce. Which means that if you play it on turn 1 and you're first, it doesn't tap for any mana because nobody else has any lands in play yet. The Jet Medallion, Mind Stone, Iron Crag, Soulstone again, of course, Thought Vessel, Bantu's Monument. We probably have more creatures in this one. Because we don't have to keep track of what classes we have in here. We have the pay a life, sacrifice another creature, create a treasure. Whenever you tap a swamp for mana, you get an additional black. Okay. Also has extort, which means you can pay either white or black, and it can still be in mono black because that isn't in the rules text, it's in the reminder text. When you cast a spell, you can pay white or black to, I think it's 1 damage to 1 opponent. Nope, it's each. And you gain that much. Oof. So every time you cast a spell, you can pay white or black to deal damage to each opponent and gain 3 life. That's pretty sweet. Defiler of Flesh. This is like the other Defiler, but it's for black mana. But whenever you cast a black permanent, a creature you control gets +1/+1 and Menace. That's the least interesting one of the 2 that we've said this episode. And it's probably the least good out of all 5 of them. I think the red one deals damage. The green one puts +1/+1 counters on stuff. And the heck if I know what the white one does. Off the top of my head. Fatalist Plunderer. And whenever another creature you control dies, you get a treasure. Oh, there's our good friend Solemn Simulacrum. Darkness Crystal again. Near Kana Revenant. Whenever you tap a swamp for mana, add an additional black. And this thing has a mana sink for black mana. Kirk, Son of Yawgmoth. This is like the Defiler, but it's for all of your black pips. And there's no payoff for paying life instead. He has lifelink, but whenever you cast a black spell, you put a +1/+1 counter on Kirk, Son of Yawgmoth. Bloodsoaked Champion again, Constrip. Nether Trader. Whenever another creature is put into their graveyard from the battlefield, you may pay black. If you do, this goes from the graveyard to the battlefield. Okay, and it has haste. And Shadow, which means it can only block or be blocked by other creatures with Shadow. Okay. Reassembling Skeleton, it's another thing that goes from the graveyard to the battlefield. This guy can bring stuff back from the graveyard to the battlefield, but they become skeletons with no abilities, which is kind of neat. You're kind of just bringing them back for the body. Palace Siege again. Shieldred has Swamp Walk, which is just wild. At the beginning of your upkeep, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. At the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, they sacrifice a creature. There's Virtue of Persistence again. Beholder's Innervation Ray. Huh. Oh. I did that for this one, but not the other one. This is the -1/-1 for each swamp you control. Or maybe I did, and I just... Oh, yeah, down here it doesn't say, and I didn't read it on the card. Cast down, go for the throw, Grasp of Darkness, Heartless Act, Infernal Grasp, Arc Enemy's Charm, Overkill, Baleful Mastery, Deadly Relic, Dread of the Underworld. Ah, new one. Phyrexian Obliterator. This one's evil. 4 solid black pips for a 5/5 with Trample. Whenever a source deals damage to Phyrexian Obliterator, that source's controller sacrifices that many permanents. Deadly Alliance again, which we're going to remove because I don't. We might have a full party, but I don't. I doubt it. Bitter Blossom, Jadar, Sting the Glinting Dagger. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 and has haste. Haste means you can use tap abilities and attack the turn it comes into play, as opposed to having to wait a turn. At the beginning of each combat, untap equipped creature. Equipped creature has first strike as long as it's blocking or blocked by a goblin or orc. That last part's probably not important. Oh, and then we're all the way back to Criminal Past. So we are going to get rid of Deadly Alliance, because I probably have set it up to where I have everything, but not as reliably. This untap effect is so I can do this every turn. There are... I think I'm going to get rid of Phyrexian Tower. For a very expensive land. Urborg, Tomb of Yawgmoth. Each land is a swamp in addition to its other land types. This gives Shieldred unblockable, effectively, because Swamp Block means you cannot be blocked by by players who control swamps. And also means those 2 other creatures add mana no matter what. Because Nykthos counts as a swamp, so it doubles Nykthos' land, basically. Well, not doubles. We would just get 1 additional... Is it 1 additional black per swamp? Where are you? Where's Ramp? It's in Ramp, right? Tap a swamp, add an additional black. Yeah, you know what? Urborg isn't worth it for Urborg. It's worth it if you do the Cabal Coppers thing. Scratch my back. Because Cabal Coffers taps for... I see some cards fell out of my deck. So let's go added and removed. Oh, I accidentally removed Witch's Cottage, so that goes back. And then we'll add back Phyrexian Tower. And then we should be at 99 because yeah, okay, so they didn't fall out of my deck. How many creatures do we have? Okay, whatever it is that we... Oh, you know what? Just a Bitter Bloom Bearer. Because it creates more tokens for us to sacrifice. There we go. I am happy with this silly little deck. And we are at... an hour and 21, so I will want to do some more. So we will do this one, and then even if it takes me over 2 hours, we're going to do both of these as well. Just because colors. So Abdel, Candlekeep, Sage. Now, why did I put these two together? Candlekeep Sage says, commander creatures you own have, when this creature enters or leaves the battlefield, draw a card. I understand now. And anyone else who doesn't understand now will understand in a hot minute. When Abdel Adrian Gorion's Ward enters the battlefield, exile any number of other non-land permanents you control until Abdel Adrian leaves the battlefield. Create a 1/1 white soldier creature token for each permanent exiled this way. Okay. Oh, I actually know a card that I want to put into this deck already. Flicker Wisp. When it enters the battlefield, exile another target permanent. Return that card to the battlefield at the beginning of your scrolls from the next end step, and that's the thing that I can probably remove for it. Soul Hoarder. When a creature is exiled from the battlefield, put a +1/+ counter on Soul Hoarder at the beginning of your end step. You may exile another target creature you control, and then return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control. So that's a blink. Put in the Miku version of this card. Whenever Miku Queen Electric deals combat damage to a player, exile any number of target non-land permanents you control, then return those cards to the battlefield under their owner's control. Sure, why not? Preston the Vanisher. Whenever another non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, if it wasn't cast, create a token that's a copy of it, except for it's an 0/1 illusion. Yeah, any copies of legendaries are going to die instantly. Although that also says non-token. I think I might take that out. Teleportation Circle, beginning of end step, artifact or creature gets blinked. Blinking creature at the end of your turn. You can also pay a lot of mana to tap something. It's also not a creature if your devotion to blue is less than 5. Conjurer's Closet. It's Teleportation Circle again. Yordian Sky Nomad. When it enters, you exile any number of other non-land permanents, and at the beginning of the next end step, they come back. Deadeye Navigator. Man, these are pains to look at. This looks like someone tried to draw the Flying Dutchman from SpongeBob, but just a lot more seriously. As long as it's paired with another creature. Oh, Soul Bond, which means you pair it with a creature when it comes into play or another creature comes into play. You can kind of, like, whatever. And then you can pay 1 in a blue to exile that creature and return to the battlefield under your control. Ishto Rule gives you another end step. Panarmonicon doubles triggers on entering. Roaming Throne doubles triggers on entering, but I'm not entirely certain. But it's only of a specific creature type, so that's probably not helpful in this deck. I don't... Oh, no? No, that doesn't work. That's weird. So that can also come out. That's Harmonicon on a creature. This is Harmonicon with anti-Harmonicon for your opponents. This is the Harmonicon again. Skull Clamp, so we can trade in those stupid knights for cards. Whenever one or more other creatures you control leave the battlefield without dying, you draw a card. Enters, draw a card. You can draw a card if you've made a token. Enters the battlefield, draw a card. Enters the battlefield, draw a card. Discard if you don't control another creature with power 2 or less. Enters the battlefield, draw a card. And it's a wall, for the record. Draw a card whenever another creature with power 2 or less enters once a turn. Same thing. I think you each end step, if you create a token, draw a card. Is that each? That is each. Look at the top X cards of your library, where X is the number of tokens you created this turn, one into your hand, the rest at the bottom of your library in a random order. Whenever Calblazer enters the battlefield, you gain 2 life and draw 2 cards. It costs a lot for a 2/2, but the thing is that you're kind of wanting to blink it. Cracker Hook, if we have a lot of those warriors. Plus X, plus S, and flying in Talent of Turn, where X is the number of creatures you control. And then our uninteresting land section, to where I'm going to go back. Flicker Wisp can stay. Yeah, I don't know if the creation gets doubled with Roaming Throne. Because it says this way. And then we're going to dump Preston the Vanisher. Yes, so we should be at 98 up here? Okay, good. Then our lands aren't super interesting. Yeah, it's the kind of things you've seen from me before. Except I separated the basics into its own section. And the numbers are slightly different. That's mildly interesting, because it's 2 colors. Ghostly Persian and Propaganda in our protection section. 7 pieces of ramp. Soul Ring, Arc Sig, Exoria Signet, Mind Stone, Talisman of Progress, Thought Vessel, and Solemn Simulacrum. Because we can bounce, not bounce them, but blink them. And then all of our removal in one spot and not separated. Let's fix that. So, yeah. Aether Spouts, we've talked about that before. Settle the Wreckage. It exiles all attacking creatures, and the players whose creatures just got exiled can get basic or any kind of land. That many basic lands from their deck into the battlefield tapped. Aether Eyes again. So we got Memories of Nibelheim. Destroy non-land permanent. They get a 1/1 human. Generous Gift. Any permanent and they get an elephant. Emergency Eject. Non-land permanent and they get a lander token. Which is basically a one-time rampant growth because they can search their deck for a basic land, put into play tapped. Reality Shift again. Parting Gust, where it either blinks something or you can give a fish to exile it permanent. Heliod's Intervention, you can either gain life or destroy X artifacts and or enchantments. That goes over here in Mass Disruption. Oh, Curse of Swine. That I just spotted that over here. Mass Disruption. So we have 5 pieces of Mass Disruption. Get Lost. Destroy target creature, enchantment, or planeswalker. The controller creates 2 map tokens, which is you can pay 1, sacrifice it. I think you also have to tap it. And target creature explores, which is where I think you have to reveal the top card of your library. Yeah, you have to prove. And if it's a land, it goes into your hand. And if it's not a land, you can put it in your graveyard, but either way, you put a +1/+1 creature counter on the creature that explored. Faithful Absent turns a creature or planeswalker into a clue token. Good old Disenchant, Bovine Intervention, Unwanted Remake, Controller Manifest Dread, which is anything where it's like that. It's just like they look at some number of the top cards of their library and puts one of them face down into play. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. Swords of Plowshares, Rapid Quantification. Oh nope, that's Path to Exile. I thought it was something else. So we have 14 pieces of removal, interestingly enough, and 5 pieces of Mass Disruption. I believe the only section left is tokens. So if I go here, this triples the number of creature tokens we make. No, that's twice. This is Mondrak. And then we can make them indestructible. We get 4/4 angels instead of 1/1 soldiers or whatever it was. Doubles the number of tokens into some other things. Oh yeah, this is another doubler that came out that I forgot about. Oh, +1, we get a soldier. 0, +1/+1 counter on each creature they control. They get fly until our next turn. And then destroy target creature an opponent controls with mana value 3 or greater. That's for 3. She is darn good. This is the triple creature token creation. So if you were paying attention during the TMNT, you know that Dom and Leo Province Solvers, a 5-mana blinker that does 2 blinks for the 2 blinks per blink. And I was thinking that Flicker Wisp wasn't that good, but Flicker Wisp actually kind of works with Abdel, I think. Sorry, I'm just kind of scratching my leg. There we go. Funny thing is that we have all those Harmonicons. Well, I guess they trigger this in the ones that say when these things in the draw section mostly. Oh, excuse me. Just kind of looking at my lands again. Oh, I see how I did it. Okay. It's like I'm not entirely 100% certain what else I'd want to put in here. Because like if we went to EDH Rec, like when's the last time someone put this deck together? I mean, we could do Charming Prince. That... Yeah, let's just do Charming Prince just to be done with it, because I don't want to think too much. And then we will use that printing. There we go. Yep. Just another Zoria's Blink deck, I guess. But this one makes a bunch of 1/1 soldiers. Oh, and that's why we want multiple insteps, because of that. Yeah. Okay. Gale, Scion of Halaster. This is the most obvious one that whenever I see people talking about backgrounds, they're like, team these two together. Scion of Halaster says, Commander creatures you own have, the first time you would draw a card each turn, instead, look at the top 2 cards of your library. Put one of them into your graveyard and the other one back on top of your library. Then you draw the card. Not one of my favorites, if I'm being honest. And then Gale, Waterdeep Prodigy. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell from your hand, you may cast up to one target card of the other type from your graveyard. So that's the thing, is that you use Scion of Halaster to put instants or sorceries in your graveyard. If a spell was cast from your graveyard this way, it would be put into the graveyard, exiled instead. And see that? It doesn't say you can cast it for free. So I think we're really just picking Scion of Halaster for just so it's a black-blue deck. So what do? Fandaniel Telophoria Asian. I don't even know if I pronounced any of that correct. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, surveil 1. Oh, I see. I have a feeling a lot of EDH Rec was used for this, but then again, I did just say, like, when's the last time someone put this deck together or updated it for EDH Rec? At the beginning of your end step, each opponent may sacrifice a non-token creature of their choice. Each opponent who doesn't loses 2 life for each instant and sorcery card in your graveyard. Okay, that is a mild non-bow for Gale casting spells out of our graveyard, but you know, in case we haven't been casting spells out of our graveyard, so this is kind of like backup. Kitsa, Otterball Elite, Vigilance and Prowess. Draw a card, then discard a card. Okay, so we're going to have looters. Copy target instant or sorcery spell you control. You may choose new targets for the copy. Activate only if Kisa is power 3 or greater. Let's see. Over here, so you had to have cast 2 spells or done some other way to get the power up to 3. Whenever you cast your second spell each turn, copy it, then exile the spell you cast with 4 time counters on it. If it doesn't have suspend, it gains suspend. Okay, I think, if this works out, I think this does. This will put the second spell you cast into exile suspend, so it doesn't go to the graveyard to get exiled by Gale's effect, because the one that you cast from your graveyard is your second spell. So that's a way. It's just that you have to wait 4 turns to cast the spell a second time, but it will go back into your graveyard. Realms Sketching, create a token that's a copy of target artifact, creature, or land. I think I just put that in because it's neat. Tomb of Horrors Adventurer. So we're taking the initiative for some reason. Oh, second spell each turn, copy it. Completed damaging, copy it twice. Okay. Charter Course, draw 2 cards and discard a card unless you have attacked. Draw 2 cards and lose 2 life. I don't know why. Oh, because we're also using Sign and Blood, which is the same thing with a different mana cost. 1 black pip instead of a generic. Frantic Search, draw 2 cards and discard 2 cards, untap 3 lands. Ingenious Mastery, you may just spend the base amount rather than the X. If the student cost was paid, you draw 3 cards, then an opponent creates 2 treasure tokens, and then gets to strike 2. If the cost wasn't paid, you just draw X cards. So, you know, depending on what you got. Of One Mind, the spell costs 2 less if you control a human and a non-human. Draw 2 cards. Our commander's human, and I assume we have non-humans in the deck. Ascend. Draw 2 cards. If you have the City's Blessing, draw 3 instead. Stock up. Look at the top 5 cards of your library, 2 of them into your hand, the rest of the bottom in any order. When you cast your second spell, draw a card. And it has Partner. I assume they're going to show up in this deck. Actually, they might not, because I think their partner's white. Archmage Emeritus. When you cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, draw a card. Oh, neat. I'm saying neat because it's in the Final Fantasy Commander product. You may cast sorcery spells as though they had flash, so that's cool. That doesn't affect Gale because he already breaks the timing rules. But, you know, it just gives you a little bit of flexibility from cards, from spells cast from hand. Whenever the ring tempts you, that is not going to matter, I don't think. Archmage of Runes, cast your instant or sorcery spell, draw a card, but also makes your instant and sorceries 1 less to cast. Rassilon the War President. At the beginning of your upkeep, you lose 2 life and exile the top card of your library. You may play a card for as long as it remains exiled. Each non-creature spell you control from exile has Conspire. Hopefully, you gotta go over here and it says what Conspire is. As you cast that spell, you may tap 2 untap creatures you control that share a color with it. When you do copy it, you may choose new card buckets for the copy. Okay. Well, that's a good reason to be in blue-black for this weirdo deck. Oh, and it says cast from exile. I gotta... Okay, this does not exile the card from your library, so that doesn't matter. So, Rassilon, I'm not entirely sure. I guess he works with himself. Arch Enemy's Charm, Overkill. Let me guess, those just are in a section called Sorcery. No, they're in a section called Instant. Hold on, we gotta move those down here. Because when this deck was made, those didn't have proper typing. Lightning Greaves, Football Boots, Mithril Cloak, Propaganda, Valley Flood Caller. You may cast non-creature spells as though they had flash. Cool. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, something that doesn't really matter happens. +1/+0 until end of turn for birds, frogs, otters, and rats. Which, this is an otter, and we have at least one other otter in this deck, so whatever. High Fate Tricksters, you may cast spells as though they had flash. Then 18 pieces of ramp, jeez. Soul Ring, Arcsig, Diamond, Curious Homunculus. It's a mana dork. On the front, it's a mana dork for instants and sorceries. And then if you have 3 more instants and sorcery and/or sorceries in your graveyard, He turns into a thing with prowess that reduces the cost of your instants and sorceries. Another diamond, dominance, soulstone, thought vessel, thunderclap drake. Another instants and sorceries cost less, but also you can copy an instant or sorcery spell for the number of times you've cast your commander. Haughty Jin is power and toughness equal to the number of instants and sorceries in your graveyard. Also makes our instants or sorceries cost less. Second spell each turn is 1 less. Instant sorceries are 1 less. Second spell is 2 less. Instant and sorcerers are 1 less. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, put a charge counter on it. And then if there's 4 more, we turn it over. And then we copy spells cast with mana from this artifact, from this land. Solemn, Darkness Crystal, Wizards of Thay, instant sorceries are 1 less. Sorceries at flash speed. Victimize. Choose 2 target creature cards in your graveyard. Oh, this is a recursion. Sacrifice a creature. If you do, return the chosen cards to the battlefield tapped. Okay. Was that... Oh, yeah, that was just in recursion, wasn't it? Look at that. All by itself. Weird, but okay. Pongify, Revitalization, Curse the Swine, Go for the Throat, Vernal Grasp, Reality Shift, Arch Enemy's Charm, Overkill, Aetherize, Deadly Relic, Aether Spouts, Puppet Stitcher. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, you get a zombie with Decayed. And then if we control 3 or more creature tokens we control lose all abilities, meaning Decayed, and are 3/3s instead. And then we can always turn it back over on our upkeep, optionally. Ward, pay 3 life, Menace. Whenever you cast or cost me an instant or sorcery, you get a Pest, which is a 1/1 creature that when it dies we gain a life. Hermes, whenever you cast a non-creature spell, we get a bird. And whenever one or more birds attacks, we scry 2. Instant or sorcery to get a 1/1 bird illusion. That's 2/2 Drakes. That's a human, and when it's over, our wizards get bigger and have flying, so that's actually good. Whenever Gravemaker Lamia enters the battlefield, search your library for a card, put it into your graveyard, then shuffle. Spells you cast from your graveyard cost 1 less to cast. I get it. Okay. I'm not a big fan of this deck, but that's just how I roll. Honestly, I'd probably never cast Scion of Halaster. Just on principle, and just on my own personal principle of not wanting to mill myself. But it's here for add the color black to the deck, and I do like that well enough. Safana, Sword Coast, Cutthroat. So we're using Sword Coast Sailor. Commander creatures you own have, whenever this creature attacks... I should have kept writing. Whenever this creature attacks a player, if no opponent has more life than that player, this creature can't be blocked this turn. So it incentivizes you playing poorly and not ganging up on the person with less life if you're trying to get them out of the game. Menace. At the beginning of your end step, if you have the initiative, create a treasure token. Create 3 of those if you have completed a dungeon. So this is... She doesn't give you the initiative. She just says if you have the initiative. Roaming Throne to double that trigger. Clan Crafter. Commander creatures you own have pay 2, sacrifice an artifact, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature, and draw a card. So it's like Clue with upside. And she does create treasure tokens, so that's what we would be sacrificing. Idol of Oblivion, draw cards if you made a token. Black Market Connections, another way to get treasure and other sorts of tokens. Mari the Killing Quill. Whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, exile it with a hit counter on it. Assassins, mercenaries, and rogues you control have Death Touch, and whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, you may remove a hit counter from a card that player owns in exile. If you do, draw a card and create 2 treasure tokens. Neat. And I believe our commander is a rogue. Dang it. Mastermind Plum again. Phyrexian Arena. At the beginning of your upkeep, you draw a card and lose a life. That could get taken out for something better. I do kind of prefer the proactive one, that you have to slap on a land, so it's also costing you a mana each time, but, you know, that's just me. Fly, venture into the dungeon. Room abilities do additional triggers. Venture into the dungeon. Oh, Esararak. When you cast this, he goes back into your hand if you have not finished Tomb of Annihilation. But also when he enters... let's see. Whenever Esararak enters, if you haven't completed the Tomb of Annihilation, return him to your hand and venture into the dungeon. So for it's 3 mana, venture into the dungeon, which is technically cheaper than any other ways of entering the dungeon. They usually cost like 4 mana. Or more. On admittedly cards that usually do other things, but here we are. But if he sticks, if he manages to stay in play because you finished the Tomb of Annihilation, whenever he attacks, for each opponent, you create a 2/2 zombie that's attacking them. Nope, not attacking them. Unless they sacrifice a creature. Displace or beast again for entering the dungeon. Venture into the dungeon. That's the bird one again. Oh, Imoen is in this deck. Yuan-Ti Fangblade deals combat damage to a player. Venture into the dungeon. Take the initiative because we do, because that is the best dungeon. When it dies, venture into the dungeon. Take the initiative. If you have the initiative, this thing gets +1/+1 counter at the end of your turn. Ravenloft Adventurer takes the initiative. And what else does it do? If a creature an opponent control will die, exile it instead and put a hit counter on it. Oh, wow, that's another hit counter creature. Whenever it attacks, if you complete a dungeon, the defending player loses 1 life for each thing they own with an exile with a hit counter on it. Nice. So another thing to do with hit counters. Venture into the dungeon. Take the initiative. Whenever Vicious Battle Rager becomes blocked by a creature, that creature's controller loses 5 life. Good lord, that is... by itself is a card I would attack with. That's basically... what is it called? Afflict? Initiative, and you get some fairies. Oh. Whenever Rilsa Rael, Kingpin... No? Nope, Kingpin, I was right. Take the initiative. Whenever you attack, target attacking creature gains that touch until end of turn. If you complete a dungeon, it also gets +5/+0 until end first strike. And menace, jeez. Just needs trample after that. Enters, take the initiative. Enter into the dungeon. At the beginning of your end step, if a creature died this turn. Take the initiative. That's also something to second spell. Oh, that's land. 19 dungeon initiative cards. Totek's Spear. That's a reskinned Shadow Spear. So equipped creature gets +1/+1 and trample lifelink. Hey, that's what I was just mentioning. And then you can pay 1 to permanents your opponent's controls lose hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. What do we have here? Agent of the Shadow Thieves. Commander creatures you own have whenever this creature attacks a player. If no other opponent has more life than that, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. Death touch and indestructible until end of turn. Okay, that's neat. The Regalia, Greaves, Helm, Paper. Boy, we've seen these a lot. Propaganda, Cloak, Soul Ring, Signet. We'll stop if it's anything new. Opportunist even already appeared. Pitiless Plunderer. Another creature you control dies, create a treasure. Solemn, Darkness Crystal, Pongify. Yep, a lot of the greatest hits. Oh, Academy Manufactor. When you get a include food or treasure, you get all 3. And that is back to the top, right? Sorkos there? Yep. Actually, I do like this deck. Except for the part where nobody likes going into the dungeon or the initiative. But we're just under 2 hours. So I'm, oh, yeah, we got like 2 minutes. So I am just going to talk about stuff. Let's see. So next week, we'll probably get through Rakdos over here and then Gruul. Oh, I need to copy down all of these links. So I'm going to do that really quick. Looking back on these decks, yeah, like how many of them did I put cards printed after Final Fantasy, I think? Because Final Fantasy was after Dragonstorm, right? Oh, yeah, Lorwyn Eclipse made it into a couple, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles made it into a couple. That's wild to think about. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. Scion of Halaster. If you have any recommendations for the Scion of Halaster, please put those in the comments. I could revisit him in the future. Out of all of them, especially with the ones I gone over today, we'll have to see about it. But I have a feeling that there's just a lot of. See how many of these decks that I'm not actually a big fan of. But I actually surprised myself. Like, okay, so mono blue dungeons, cool. Mono black party, best deck of the episode in my opinion. Sivriss. I also liked how I have 2 decks right here that are basically aristocrats without or aristocrats-esque without the Blood Artist payoffs. And then Azorius Blink, that's standard fare. I guess this is some kind of spell slingery thing. Not a fan of. And then, yeah, the other dungeon deck. Anyway, yeah, next week will be more of this. See you then.